So where would you put Amelia on that list by whatever standard you happen to be using? How much higher would you rate her?
Amelia on my tier list would be somewhere in between top and high tier.
Top and high tier. So can you give us a couple of units that you think are worse than Amelia? That most people probably wouldn't rate below Amelia, because obviously talking about why Amelia is better than a human probably not interesting to anyone.
Okay, so let's compare her to her peers. Cavaliers.
Okay, I don't think this is necessary, but sure, go on. I already talked about fitting them into the categories and why I think it's irrelevant, but go on. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
why I would put her over her peers or over characters that kind of fit a similar mold on the Cavalier route, with her high mobility and having access to just swords and lances. Her versus the Pegasus Knights versus the other Cavaliers versus...
like all the lance users, I think, right?
Yeah.
Basically. So what is one of them that you think is worse than Amelia?
If I had to pick a unit worse than her, I would probably put... pretty controversial. I would put Vanessa.
Vanessa below Amelia. Okay, so
yes.
Vanessa joins, I think, around 7 maps before...
Chapter 2.
Yeah, so like 7 maps before Amelia does, with I think stats that are better all around in pretty much every area, including having flight and having movement. So what makes Amelia better than Vanessa? Because the way I see it, there is no possible way that she could be worse.
In my experience, Vanessa is a pretty frail unit who is not able to manage her speed versus fragility on like general of the battlefield. I understand that her utility is really where she shines, and her ability to just scale mountains and just do basically whatever. But for the purposes that I would like to use her outside of those parameters, I don't really see her as a good unit to use in combat at all.
Okay, but Vanessa's combat is better than Amelia's at any point in the game. Pretty much. I'm pretty sure that's like the only way that you can make Vanessa look worse than Amelia in enemies is like if you have her throw a javelin at an archer, and we all know that's a bad idea because I did it in my video with Amelia. So you should never throw a javelin at archers, especially not if you're a Pegasus Knight. So in what situation is Amelia better than Vanessa besides chucking a javelin at an archer?
I would say that even though Vanessa generally has, she does get like decent speed, it's her inability to stay in one area and lock it down to like have units encroach on her would be tantamount to self-destruction, because she just can't handle that many units coming at her at once. Whereas if you put Paladin or General Amelia in the same position, she can soak up all of that enemy turn and not really have an issue.
Okay,
even pressing forwards outside of that scenario.
Okay, but so first off, I don't know what levels you want to assume for this, but
let's say 15-15.
15-15? 50?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's say Amelia gets 10 to get out of street, and then she gets 5, or she gets 10 more, and then she gets like, or I guess no, that would be 20.
How about just first off, Vanessa joins basically 9 levels higher than Amelia 7 chapters before, so I think it would be reasonable to assume that Vanessa is at a significantly higher level, right? Do you disagree?
Yes.
Okay, so...
No, I don't.
Come again?
No, I said no, I don't.
Okay, so...
Oh, no, I'm cutting it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just a little bit. So I don't really want to use my LTC as a level of reference because that's obviously weird, but I think it's reasonable for Vanessa to, in a sort of casual-ish playthrough, like that doesn't just help Amelia. If we get to take a little bit more time in every chapter, then Vanessa obviously benefits from that as well, because she can get a lot more experience early on, since you're not, rushing to get the boss kill or whatever. You can just clear up every enemy. I think that's reasonable that Vanessa is like level 15 or something around her route split, because she's very flexible on where she can attack from, so it's very easy to get kills with her every turn. And if you do that, if you can get Vanessa to like, let's say level 15 or something, She actually has 24 HP at level 15, and if she promotes, she has 27. And then she also has a ridiculous 19 speed, and then if you promote her, she has 21 speed, and then she also has like a reasonable amount of luck, like 11. So that means I'm doing math on the fly, which is a very bad idea, but she has like 50 avoid at that point, which means that enemies, they will have like 50-50 hit rates on her, maybe, if they're using fairly accurate weapons. And she's also like, she's not frail or anything. She has like, as a Wyvern Knight, for example, at 15/1, she would have 27 HP and around 9 to 10 defense. Usually 10, actually. She has 8.8 on average. So that's fairly bulky. Now, Amelia at this point, when she joins in Fort Rigwald, she has 16 HP, she has 4 speed, she has 2 defense, she dies to everything. So obviously you would have to grind her up to make her even like compare to Vanessa, which I already said I think I disagree with. But even if you were to grind her to Cavalier, she would still have 22 HP and 5 defense, which is significantly worse than what Vanessa has, and she's much less dodgy because she has like 10 speed, and not even that, she has 9.6. So let's say 10, and then 10 luck as well, which will round up speed, will round down luck, something like that. She'll have 10 speed, 10 luck, which has like 30 avoid. So anything negative you have to say about Vanessa at this point, that she isn't bulky enough or not dodgy enough, goes double for Amelia, because Amelia's dodge at this point is just worse all around. So unless you were to grind Amelia to be roughly Vanessa's level, which I think is unfair to Vanessa because she didn't require that much grinding to get there to begin with, then Vanessa just looks like so much better. Like she's on another planet. She's much better. So I'm wondering where you disagree with this story, because the way I see it, there is no possible way that Amelia can even remotely compare to Vanessa.
Whew. Those are some good parameters. But the thing that I was kind of interjected with was what route would both of these characters be on? Because in Erica's route, there's kind of a lot less opportunity to get Amelia up to par, and
it doesn't really matter, I think, because either way, you're recruiting Amelia at around level at chapter 9 at level 1, and it's like halfway through the map, roughly, give or take a couple of seconds. Doesn't really matter a whole lot. So does it really make a big difference for the comparison?
I would say so, because the amount of EXP you can like reliably and safely give Amelia versus Vanessa, I don't think it should be overlooked how many more opportunities you could give her EXP so that she can catch up to Vanessa, versus Vanessa maybe not being able to competently get kills versus one map or the other.
But Vanessa's parameters at this point are better than Amelia. So she has more movement, she has more speed, she has more durability. So in what way has Amelia better opportunities to get kills than Vanessa?
She doesn't have better opportunities to get to if like they were point characters, or they didn't like the characters you send up first that would pull aggro from the enemies.
Okay.
If you were to do that with each of the characters, I don't think either one of them would kind of be in the same position. It would depend on how you structured your placement more than giving one character a certain amount of kills over the other one. Because each one would have to play towards your strengths to be used in the most effective manner. But I will grant you that Vanessa at that point, if you were using her, would be at a better position to overtake Amelia.
But it doesn't. The way I'm seeing it, there is no possible position that you can play Amelia that looks favorable for her compared to Vanessa, because Vanessa is better in every single possible area at that point. So there is no you probably know that stupid paradox about how I think it's like a hare and a turtle gets like a head start, and so the hare can never catch up. It's like it's not exactly a reverse. Vanessa gains XP more slowly than Amelia at this point, but Vanessa is far ahead. And if you give them both the same number of kills, the same number of opportunities, Amelia can never catch up to Vanessa, because at some point she may be close to equal, but she's never quite going to catch Vanessa's level, simply because you're giving them the same kills, and there's never a place, there is never a way for Amelia to actually surpass Vanessa. So given the current trend that Vanessa is actually stronger in every area, it doesn't seem likely to me that Amelia will suddenly surpass her all of a sudden. unless you were to grind Amelia a lot, which I already said I'd take an issue with. So at what point does Amelia suddenly overtake Vanessa if she's like so much better right now? Like, at what point do you say, oh, Amelia's better?
This is kind of hard to think about. To not use the actual maps as like a concrete foundation for this argument.
Well,
but
you can give me a map where you think Amelia's better, if that helps. Like, you got time on WOD to just look at all the maps and find one. I think you used it for your video, so.
I did. I brought up the two joint maps as well as the chapter.
And like,
13.
keep in mind, I haven't really brought up Vanessa's flyer utility here. I'm like almost strictly speaking about their combat. I brought up her move as like a way to say she's flexible to get kills in better places than Amelia. That's about it. Her fly utility, I think, also gives her a lot of credit. But even just looking at combat, Vanessa is just so much better than Amelia in any way. So where is Amelia being better than Vanessa? What map? What situation? What level?
I think after Amelia is able to get enough chances to kill in the first, I want to say 3 maps after chapter 9. Like, I don't know when the desert map starts. I think that's chapter 12.
The desert is chapter 15.
Ah, okay. So I think the chapter before that, I think Amelia should have like enough of a foothold to be able to kind of look after herself to the point where she could be a point character that you could send out on the front lines, therefore giving her more EXP than Vanessa, because Vanessa can never be that character that you can just push out before everybody else in more than one situation, because there's usually going to be like an archer or some high damaging unit that may get a straight hit on her, putting her in massive jeopardy.
Well, the great thing about Vanessa is because she flies, she can be very picky about where she goes. So if there is an area that an archer is protecting, so to speak, she can work around it by, you know, just going slightly out that archer range, but still in range of other enemies. She can even fly in and kill that one archer, and then the way is free. There is plenty of runs, like they're mostly LTC runs, sure, where you can see Vanessa frontlining plenty of times. Of course, those sometimes have to manipulate level up, so they're not always the best examples, but like if you, let me see, chapter 15, for example, is a really good example usually because it's a desert, so she can really go anywhere. It's actually a map where Amelia is really bad, no matter what path you pick. But for example, if you look at, let's see, for example, the middle of the desert has only mercenaries and a shaman. That's no threat to Vanessa at all. She can be done there safely. The lower area, I don't know if you remember or if you're looking at a map.
The lower left?
The lower,
lower left,
kind of like the Falter area, but no, kind of like
Yeah.
the, with like the Myrmidons, the fighters, the...
Yeah,
so
right directly in the middle.
Yeah, so you can put Vanessa in such a spot, I remember this from my LTC playthrough, you can put her in spots where she's not in range with the rangers, but she's still capable of fighting even the fighters at this point, because Vanessa is surprisingly dodgy. She can take, I think she can survive a fighter plus a mercenary pretty easily, and maybe sometimes even 2 fighters, and be out of range of the rangers and still just do fine on enemy phase. So there are definitely situations where you can send Vanessa out safely. But like I said, Amelia is really bad in this map to begin with, so it's not really a fair comparison. So I'm looking for like a better example. But I really disagree with the notion that Vanessa is not a character you can ever send out. I think you call it a point character, and on the front lines will be fine. And also, she's a really good candidate for your early game Angelic Robe, because the more flexibility you give to your flyers, the more you can take advantage of them. It's like in incremental amounts. It's like a great return on your investment. So I'm not going to throw in an Angelic Robe for free, because that's going to get into a whole hornet's nest.
I'm not using modifiers.
Yeah, so I didn't want to do that, but I do want to note she is a really good candidate for this. And there's definitely a lot of situations in FE8 where you can just throw out Vanessa in an area and either clear it or kill a lot of enemies, or just be fine. Like if you look at like chapter 13 of Ephraim Route, for example, it also has a lot of terrain. It's a Selena map with a lot of rivers. So initially there's like a couple of areas that have archers, but if you were to fly her over there along with like Cormac to kill the flyers, she'd actually be completely safe. A lot of the cavaliers in that map have swords, and swords don't really do a whole lot of damage against Vanessa. They have poor hit on her and they have low might, so she's perfectly fine. So if you just kill the 2 archers near the cavaliers that are near Selena, for example, she is pretty much safe in that area. She can do that frontline thing you mentioned, and she can get there before other characters, including Amelia, because she has flight. Or you can get her to like the left side where there's like 3 fighters. You can use an Axe Reaver, or if you go Falcon Knight, you can use a sword if you want, but I advocate Wyvern Knight. So those are just some situations picked out of a hat, basically, where Vanessa can frontline and do pretty fine. And this is like, if even if Amelia is promoted at this point and is like really good at combat, or comparable to Vanessa at combat, they are, I would say, mostly equal on combat. There's like situations where Vanessa is worse because of archers, but at the same time her flight more than cancels that out, I feel. So like, I think at worst they're equal. But Vanessa has been dominating her for many chapters before, because Amelia joins as a trainee, whereas Vanessa joins better than her like 9 chapters before. So as far as I'm concerned, Vanessa is still blowing out Amelia. Or my voice is killing me today. So I still don't see what makes her so much better, or what makes her better at all.
Again, I would point towards the something I've never really encountered is Vanessa fighting Axe users and getting so successful that she can just hold out a spot for even one turn, one enemy round that has reinforcements coming after. I've never had a Vanessa survive 2 Axe users, even with the Slim Lance coming towards her after 2 whole turns, and she's like A-okay with dodging it, or giving me some kind of her not dying in 2 turns when I send her out as a point character.
Well, obviously, if you're sending her to an area that has a lot of Axe users, you should be using an Axe Reaver or a sword if you're going Falcon Knight. Like, you don't just send her into a wave of Axe users without any of those. I think that goes without saying. She's not meant to fight a big group of Axe users. You can still do it if you want, but it's not what she's best at, sure. But she can either change her weapon, or she can just be useful elsewhere, basically. So, like, saying you haven't seen it happen doesn't really mean you can't do it.
This is true, but I'm not putting into account promotions or the ability to cheat the weapon triangle by using the Axe Reaver.
You say cheat, but it is an option that Vanessa has. You can't just disregard an option.
I don't mean to say cheat as in it's not fair. I'm saying that it should be at a point before you have access to those tools to be able to really have her as a more malleable character. In those beginning chapters, especially in the chapter she joins, there's nothing but Axe users, and she's almost completely not viable at that stage in the game to do any kind of combat.
This would be a fair argument from anyone except someone who is arguing in favor of Amelia, who has the worst joining situation possible. And even in the early chapters, there are enemies that are not Axe users that you can pick off with Vanessa. Again, she is very flexible. You can have her pick off archers on player phase, for example, if you want to give her EXP. I will say she is not that good against Axe users. She can survive 1 hit if you needed to. So if you get an Axe user to low HP, she can attempt to finish them off with Slim Lance. If she misses, no big deal, because she's gonna have another shot. She doubles them all because of her high base speed, so she can use the Slim Lance to double them, or she can chuck a javelin if you want. It's not very accurate, but there's no opportunity cost. So I don't think it's fair to say she can see practically no combat at all. And also, this is true for chapter 2. It is sort of true for chapter 3, although again, I think there's options enough to get her kills. And then chapter 4 has like a lot of monsters that she's actually fairly good against.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
anybody can farm off that map, yeah.
Yeah, but Vanessa's around and Amelia isn't, so she can get EXP there. True. And then chapter 5 has like plenty of soldiers, some mercenaries, archers. Like, I know it sounds weird for me to say archers are good for Vanessa, but she's pretty good at picking them off in player phase. So because she's so flexible, it's pretty easy to get her into a position where she can just get those kills. So as far as I'm concerned, like, you're kind of pretending that Vanessa's combat is so bad that she's like negative utility for the early game, like she's hurting her chances by being around. But as far as I'm concerned, it's like a huge pro for her to be around, while Amelia is not. So like, Vanessa is helping for Vanessa's helping for like 7 chapters or something before Amelia even shows up. So for Amelia to even be better than Vanessa, she would have to be significantly better for the rest of the game. But instead, she is significantly worse for another portion, because she needs to get up to speed and promote twice. And only then, after 2 promotions, she can say she's maybe equivalent to Vanessa in combat. I would have to like do an in-depth analysis of their stats to see how exactly they're doing. But for the most part, I would say Vanessa is still like can spar with Amelia. Is like roughly on par at worst, but she still has her flight to like get to places that Amelia can never reach. Like if you look at the desert, you can pretty much see that Vanessa is the winner for that chapter. So at this point, Amelia has been losing for all of the time Vanessa's been around. Amelia has not. The time it took Amelia to get up to speed, and then the chapters where flight is so significant that Amelia cannot get anywhere but Vanessa can. So I am still looking for that redemption of Amelia that makes her better than Vanessa, and I'm just not seeing it.
I would say that instead of having seven full chapters of growth and experience over Amelia, I would say it's more like 5. Because like you said, those first 2 chapters, she's not really doing much combat unless you are getting lucky with javelin throws versus those early archers when she really doesn't have the skill to be able to hit them, especially when some of those axe users are kind of in hard to reach terrain, like they spawn in the mountains, which gives them a better advantage to not get hit by Vanessa. And then the chapter 4 with all of the monsters.
Okay, if we're going to do chapter by chapter, no one can really fight brigands on mountains except Seth. Everyone else has a pretty shitty time against them, so I don't think it's fair to say Vanessa sucks at brigands when they're on mountains, because basically everyone does. I think pretty much everyone waits for them to come down from the peaks or kill them with Seth. And like no one is also really one-rounding them. I think Erica comes close but doesn't quite do it, and Gilliam and friends can combine but not quite kill, I think. So there's plenty of room for Vanessa to contribute, even if she's not optimal against them, even if she's not better than other characters at this thing. It's still something she does that helps you. And in addition, chapter 2 is also the chapter where she saves Ross from having a chance of death, so that alone counts greatly for Vanessa's brownie points, I feel like, to the point where you can count it as a good chapter for her, because not having to rely on the RNG.
I'm not gonna say she's not useful, but just like combat specifically, just focusing on combat alone, I don't think she's really contributing
like
at all.
I can see why you're saying that, because we were mostly focusing on combat, but at the same time I think it's important when you're rating a unit as a whole. You're not just like, you do agree that utility of a character should be taken into account when rating a character, right? So hand waving Vanessa's utility by doing something like saving Ross, I think doesn't do justice to her, because she can do that thing, and it is an important contribution to your team. So I don't see why you shouldn't take it into account when rating her.
It's not that I'm going to not take into account. It's just that for the way I play, there are certain things that I value over certain other things. Generally, after a certain point, specifically when I get Tana into the party, I kind of bench Vanessa, because Tana is, in my opinion, the better flyer who has better growths and usually does better overall in late game.
Okay, well, I would do a comparison, but Tana is like Tana versus Vanessa is basically Tana versus Amelia, or Vanessa versus Amelia, a bit different. So it's like it doesn't really matter. I feel like Vanessa's much better than Tana, just like Amelia, she joins worse and much later. So I don't know. I don't agree with that. But we were looking for Amelia being better than Vanessa. So let's stick to a track, because we're already over an hour.
Yeah. So after a certain point, let's just reduce it down to how I have Vanessa on my party, not just in general, because I know there are general parameters that I'm not taking into consideration, but generally I do not use Vanessa to soak up that much EXP or to put her into that much danger in the situations that you would put her in, where she could fight maybe the axe user here or there, or kill. Well, what I would do is kill an archer on player 2.
Well, you're basically saying you're basically saying Vanessa's not part of your core team, so you're not trading her, right?
No, she is trained up to a certain point so that she can be useful for me for certain situations.
Like what?
So in the chapter where you need, I think it's chapter 5, where you have to fight the dark magic user and the fog.
That's chapter 6, yeah.
Chapter 6. I would need her to be at a certain level for her to be able to fight. I think it's soldier and to dodge a knight. so that she could fly around to rescue the civilians. So
You're
that
training
they
her
can-
to a certain level so she can dodge at night.
Yeah, but because her
So-
speed is unreliable. Go ahead.
But her speed is unreliable at base level to dodge at night. But if you train her a little, it's suddenly reliable.
No. It's not just one night. It's like that specific area where there's a bunch of enemies kind of grouped up. There's like there's a night. I think there's 2 nights.
Are you trying to fly her to like
soldier,
the area
and
where
a
the spider
mercenary.
is?
Yes.
Is that the point? Well, you can get her there at base level with no risk at all. So I don't really see why you would train Vanessa for that. That's
I would train her for that just to give her more EXP so that let's say if I mess up anywhere during that because I forget something or I choose to do something a certain way, the spiders come in and then I have to kind of have someone stalwartly shield that area before the spiders get to the civilian before I'm able to come back and rescue them after I think it takes 3 turns to do it. Because you rescue, drop off, and then rescue, drop off again. If I wanted her to be safe from the spiders, I would also like to have her to have some more HP, so that if she gets hit by the spider, she will immediately die the next turn by poison. And for her to just not get hit at all, to have her have a decent speed in order to like ward off them while I rescue the NPCs.
Oh, I feel like you're using like you're assuming that you need to train her because you might fuck up. But as far as I remember, you can use a strat that keeps Vanessa at full HP. She rescues someone like Lute or Archer if you want towards the peak. You put her in front of the NPCs, and then she survives the spider plus poison at base level pretty safely as far as I remember. And as long as you never attack, she cannot die. I'm pretty sure that's the case. But it's been a while since I did this strat because nowadays I just kill the boss before the chapter is over. That's the most more reliable way to get the chapter over with. I feel like it's a pretty big waste to train Vanessa like that in the early game, only to dump her later for a different character. But it's off topic anyway because I don't really know why this is related to Amelia as better, because I feel like if you want to fairly compare Amelia and Vanessa over the course of the game, you should assume that Vanessa's like part of your core team and you're using her all the way through. So you're giving her XP whenever you can, the same you would for other characters. So say I'm planning to use.
Okay, so I've been trying to not do that because that just relies on so much bias. The thing that you don't really want to have included in your objective argumentation. A lot of the Vanessas that I've trained up and kept in my party just don't have really good stats.
Well,
her speed is usually pretty low. Her skill isn't really anything to write home about, and her HP is generally like even lower than.
But her base speed is higher than Naomi's or than Amelia's, and her growth is higher. And even after taking promotion bonus into account, her speed is higher. So I don't see how you can like Amelia over Vanessa because Vanessa doesn't have enough speed. Now, you mentioned that usually for you, this is the case, but I think that's important. Another thing you need to address is the thing that we use averages to compare units instead of our own experiences. Now, do you believe that we should always use our own experiences to rate units?
I think that's it. That it should interplay. Like, just because I've had bad experiences with Vanessa does not erase the fact that other people can have good experiences with Vanessa, and then we all meet in the middle at the averages, like the actual numbers, and then from there we have like our differing opinions.
Okay, but do you disagree with just using averages then? Because that's basically what we're doing anyway. If you're saying we should combine everyone's experiences into a hypothetical tier list, you're basically using averages.
But the averages, I thought, were basically just their growths, not just averages. It's not like a community thing where we all just tally up like 500 people's playthroughs.
No, it's just that averages that are on FEA, the averages that everyone uses, they will generally be equal to the combined experiences of like 500 people divided by 500. Basically, it is. The average is what's going to happen on average. He's not going to get screwed and she's not going to get blessed. He's going to be right in the middle. And we can say something like I don't know, for example, at level 12, she has like 17.6 speed, for example. That could be 16, that could be that could be 17, that could be 18. We can round it a little. We can say if there's an enemy that has like just enough speed to not get doubled by 17, but you can get doubled by 18, we can take that into account. There's a little leeway, but generally there is, I feel like, no disadvantage to just sticking to averages when making comparisons. Because if you're gonna say my Vanessa, if you're gonna say my Vanessa and I'm gonna say my Vanessa, we are never gonna agree on anything because we're just using different units. So I don't see the point in taking your own experiences with the unit into account when it comes to stat comparisons. I do think it matters for actual gameplay things you can do, like the strat I mentioned for Chapter 6 or the strat you mentioned for Chapter 6. If we're talking about concrete strategies, like doing this and then doing that, for that kind of thing, your own experiences are useful. But when it comes to statistical comparisons, I think there is little to no value to saying, well, my Vanessa are usually pretty poor, because you might have gotten RNG screwed every single time, and we wouldn't be able to tell. Or if it was like if you were a more nefarious person, you could say, well, my Vanessa is always bad and therefore she is bad, even though you've secretly been using like super powerful Vanessas always, but you just hate her so much that you want to talk her down in this video. That could also happen. So that is why, I'm just kidding, but the I don't see the problem with just using averages. Like I think you said something about how that's not what happened to the average player, but the problem is that if we just go by everyone's own experiences, we're never really going to be able to discuss anything, because everyone is just experiencing different things. So the average is just a compromise, or compromise. I think I'm supposed to say compromise. There's just no point in using your own experiences when it comes to statistics, because we can calculate what the odds are of getting everything. So what is the point of using your own experience with a unit to rate a unit? Like if I want to tell a new player how Vanessa's going to be for them, likely, is it better if I go with my own experience of how good Vanessa was on my file, or is it better to just say, hey, these are the chances, and she's probably going to have this much speed by this level? Like, I don't see a reason why you would go with the former instead of the latter.
I don't disagree with the point of just using the averages as kind of like the main focal point of building up this I don't want to say narrative, but just foundation of where the character should be in light of where the averages say that they should be. But when you ask me specifically, like my personal feelings towards the character, I don't want to give you something that is so written with bias that it can't be used for anything objective. But I also don't want to leave that out as if it's not something that is insignificant in rating the character.
But why does it have to be brought in at all? Why is your Vanessa more important than the average Vanessa? Or why is it worth bringing into the discussion when it could be just an anomaly?
It could be just an anomaly, just like having a really amazing I don't know, just 100% growths on a random character like that. It could just be an anomaly, or it could be a weird,
or it could be RNG screwed. So why does it have value to someone to know what your Vanessa is like when we're just trying to rate units?
Because that would lead you into what my thought process is as to why I would think the way I would about the character, regardless of what if I've even known about or seen the averages, and I have. Why I would say that this character should be over this character is because of the way that I play, so that I can strategize in the ways that I find my parameters being legitimate to me. Why I would use that as a focal point.
Okay, but for like the goal of someone making a tier list, or the goal of a new player trying to find out how good characters is not to find out how you think. I mean, they might be interested, but it's not their goal. What they want to know is how good is this character, and how good how the character is on your file doesn't really do anything for them that the averages don't really tell them. It could tell them, hey, your Vanessa had like 11 speed at level 12. Wow, that must mean she sucks, so I'm not going to use her. That's just misinformation. So I feel like best case scenario, it doesn't tell them anything, and worst case scenario, it gives them misinformation because Vanessa's base speed is 11. So you just got screwed by the RNG, but you just kind of made them think that her speed was worse than it was. And really what you could do, which would make more sense to me, is say, hey, my Vanessa has pretty bad speed, But if you look at her averages, it's usually better. So make of that what you will. But instead, it sounds like you're saying we should give my Vanessa that I got, my possibly anomalous Vanessa, and this average Vanessa, we should give them equal weight in the discussion. I really disagree with that. I don't know if that's what you're saying. Should they have equal weight?
No, I'm not saying it should have equal weight. I'm just saying it should be a part of that parameter.
How much of a part?
Let's say averages are 50% and personal bias are 20%, and 30% is just everything else around that cloud, I guess.
Everything else around that cloud?
Around the discussion, like anything to do with not just personal bias, as in this is the way my character got because of RNG, but just I guess how she is for formations, or how she is for just other gameplay benefits and negatives and positives that you can have during the game.
Well, for me, the pie would be more like I don't know. I feel like you can't really separate them in a pie like that. And I definitely don't think that the personal bias should have a place at all. I feel like it should be, I don't know, just the whole thing should just be a mix between what she can do because of her stats and what stats she can reach because of what she can do. It's like an interactive thing. It's like, I just feel like the average stats are the only thing you need to take into account. But before we hit the 90-minute mark, there are a couple of things I actually wanted to bring up before we all fall asleep, and I'm probably gonna like split this into multiple parts because no way everyone's gonna. Yeah, and I might edit. I mean, when editing, so we can just keep talking. But there were a couple of things that someone else saw in your video that I want to address because they were patently false. So I think one of the things you said. And I don't remember the exact quote because I wasn't taking notes that elaborately. It was, you said something along the lines of Amelia is helpful because she can kill berserkers before she attacks you by just attacking them and critting them.
Oh, I made a point to say that I think in your videos you said that she couldn't, like her combat was really bad, and I made a point that, well, if you have a really well-trained Amelia who can like take care of herself, and she has like good an advantageous position, she could fight a killing axe using berserker with a slib lance and kill him before he has a chance to have his turn.
That's what could, but it's slightly off topic, but if she's a general, she actually cannot attack a berserker without the berserker attacking her first. Did you realize that? Like we're fucking 90 minutes in, we haven't even talked about her class choices, but did you realize, like, do you not see the funny thing, like the irony here, that you're talking about her attacking her berserker, even though as a general she needs to be danced, which I know you also don't like dancers, so that's another funny part.
Yeah. So
like she either needs help from a dancer or she needs to be in a different class to attack her berserker before the berserker attacks her. I just found that a little ironic. And also, I think you mentioned it as something unique that Amelia brings to the team, when in reality, pretty much any sword user could do that, and there's plenty of lance users who could do that, and possibly do it better, because they would have the advantage of more movement. In the case of flyers, or if you're using non-paladin Amelia, you could use someone like Seth, even, they'll be more mobile. Even Dusel is more mobile than her if she's a general. So there would be even more units that are better at killing berserkers. And above that, like a berserker, there's like 2 in the entire game, I think. So
I think there's 2 on the desert map, and I think there's another.
Oh, there's 2. Right. There's 3 then. So not a really significant enemy type anyway. I know it's just an example, but it just jumped out at me as like, I don't know. This is not a very important niche. B, it's not unique to her. And C, she's not even really the best unit for it. So I don't think that was a very good example, if that was what it was.
It was just what do you call it? An exaggeration.
Okay. Also, let's see. My other notes say Amelia's not the best spear lance user. Well, we've talked about Vanessa against Amelia plenty, so I think I'll skip out on that one. We need to address the elephant in the room, which is that Amelia is bad in general, as in the general class. Like, you say, like, I don't know where to start with this. Do you think all our options are equal, or are there some options that are better than others? You think general is the best?